Okay, we're ready to get started. Is everybody here joining us in Washington, D.C. ready to go? Yes. Let's hear that a little louder. Yes. All right. Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Karen Philbrick, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of the Mineta Transportation Institute at San Jose State University. MTI, as we're better known, was founded by Secretary Mineta himself in 1991. We are a U.S. Department of Transportation competitively selected university transportation center, and we specialize in surface transportation research, technology transfer, education, and critically important workforce development, the reason we've all come together today. So thank you. Before we proceed, I'd like to ask that everybody with a cell phone turn that cell phone to silent, so that our competition is not interrupted or delayed. And for those of us joining remotely from California, please be sure to turn your microphones off unless you're speaking, because the mics activate with the camera at your location. Additionally, if you're using a PowerPoint, please put your computer in hibernate to avoid disruption. Now on to the good stuff. Today's event represents one of MTI's signature K-12 workforce development activities, the Garrett Morgan Sustainable Transportation Competition, designed for middle school students, and it's in honor of a trailblazing inventor by the name of Garrett Morgan. The son of slaves with only an elementary school education went on to achieve some of the great patents that we still experience today. An innovator who perhaps is best well known for the current traffic signal that you see at almost every intersection when you're traveling by vehicle or foot. He was the one who developed the warning light to alert drivers that the need to stop would be imminent. So we know there are some trailblazers among you today, and we are so looking forward to hearing the sustainable competition that you've put together. Very importantly, today's winning team will receive a $1,000 award for the classroom, as well as a plaque, and each individual who participates will also receive a signed certificate of achievement by Secretary Mineta himself. The winning team, 2 of the students, a chaperone and a teacher, will also enjoy an all-expenses-paid trip to San Jose, California, to participate in the Mineta Transportation Institute annual awards banquet and convocation celebration. So what does that mean for one of our winning teams that's with us today? It means you'll get to stand at the podium in front of 450 transportation professionals, including elected officials, practitioners, and academics, to accept your award, to show the future generation of transportation workers, and to be celebrated for your success. So we're very excited to have this experience with you. Go ahead and clap. That deserves a round of applause. Our second place team will also be honored with a $300 award for their classroom, as well as a plaque and certificates of achievement. So 2 outstanding teams will be presenting for all of you today. Now, before we go on, it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce you to an American legacy, Secretary Norman Y. Mineta, who sits here to my left. As many of you may know, he has served our public and our country for many decades now, starting as a member of City Council in San Jose, California, which incidentally is the heart of the Silicon Valley, moving on to serve as the mayor of San Jose, a member of Congress for 20 years, and quite uniquely, a presidential cabinet member in 2 administrations. First as Secretary of Commerce in Clinton's administration, followed by Secretary of Transportation in the Bush administration. He is perhaps most well known, for so many reasons actually, but for his decisive actions on 9/11. When we received a terrorist attack on American soil, he acted quickly and with great certainty to ground all airline traffic in the U.S. skies to help make sure that our Americans remain safe and out of harm's way, and we thank him for his service. He's been celebrated with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. There is a documentary that will be shown on May 10th in his honor, celebrating his lifetime and his achievement. And it delights me to welcome you students in this room with me today and those joining remotely, and to introduce you to Secretary Mineta.
Thank you very much, Dr. Philbrick. And I want to thank you for your tremendous work at the Mineta Transportation Institute at San Jose State University. And I want to congratulate and welcome all of our students who are here from Hart Academy. And thank you for your participation in the work that you're doing in your research project, as well as to your teachers and others who are supporting you, your parents and others at your school, to get to this point. And this is so important because what this will do is to give you an exposure about what kinds of job opportunities are there in the transportation field. And to me, transportation is something that's very basic to our economy. Everything you eat, you wear, whatever you do, probably got to you by some means of transportation. So transportation to me is very basic to our economy. And the fact that you're exhibiting some interest in what's happening in the field of transportation to me is very, very heartening. So I want to congratulate all of you for participating, for thinking about all these different kinds of possibilities that you're thinking about as you work on your project, and to thank again all of your advisors and teachers and others who are helping you get to this point. Garrett Morgan was a very, very significant individual in the transportation field. So we celebrate Garrett Morgan from his humble beginnings to what he did. And his original traffic signal was something that you might have seen in pictures, but it was a sort of a arm that would come out from a box and say, stop, go. And then eventually later on, as Karen said, he then put that caution light saying, okay, we're going to go from go to caution to stop. And so he had a very significant part in what happened in transportation over all of these years. My honor today is to introduce our principal speaker, Jeff Rosen, who's sitting next to me. When I was Secretary of Transportation here, was the general counsel for this department. He was the top lawyer for the Department of Transportation, and did a terrific job. He had his college education from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, and graduated from Harvard Law School. I remember when someone asked me, was I on the dean's list at the university? I said, yeah, I was on the dean's list, but not that dean's list. It was the other one. But Jeff graduated from Harvard Law School, magna cum laude.
Wow.
So that is really an achievement when you graduate from law school with that kind of honor. But he was in private practice, and we were able to attract him into the Department of Transportation as the general counsel, and is now here as the Deputy Secretary of Transportation. So that's the number 2 position right under the Secretary of Transportation. But he has served as general counsel at the Office of Management and Budget, and has had other critical positions in the field of transportation, and is highly recognized as not only a go-to person, but because of his intellectual capabilities, people seek him out to talk about transportation policy and the politics of transportation. So it's my great honor to now introduce to you Deputy Secretary Jeff Rosen. Jeff?
Well, thanks so much. It's such a tremendous privilege for me to be here with my old boss and a person that I admire so much. I really have to take this occasion to convey my tremendous gratitude and respect for Secretary Mineta's lifelong dedication to public service and to the betterment of our transportation system in particular. As you've now heard, I mean, he's had just a legendary career as a member of Congress for over 20 years. I'm not sure if people are aware he was also the first Asian American appointed to a president's cabinet. He had an unusual distinction of serving in two different cabinet departments, where he was the Secretary of the Commerce Department and Secretary of the Transportation Department. And I could probably spend the whole time of my remarks talking about his career because it's so spectacular, but he's lived a life and a professional career that's nothing short of legendary, and it's just one of the privileges of my days to be able to spend this time here with him. But this event is about the young people that are here, and we're very grateful for that. I want to give my welcome to the Hart Christian School students who are here and their teachers. I also want to welcome on the teleconference our guests from Toddy Thomas Middle School and Frick Impact Academy. I certainly want to thank all of you for entering this competition, and thanks to all the teachers who worked so hard at enabling the students to be here. I think it's a wonderful thing that the Mineta Institute does, and I hope it proves valuable, and I'm sure it will, to the students who participate. I also want to just take a second to acknowledge and express my appreciation for the supporters of the competition, the folks from the American Public Transportation Association, who I know are here, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, and also, of course, Caltrans. So, and then I would certainly be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and thank Dr. Philbrick and the Mineta Transportation Institute at San Jose State University, which some of you may not be aware has sponsored this competition for 18 continuous years now. So this is something that has become a real institution, and it's something we value greatly at the Department of Transportation, both because of the wonderful work that the Institute does and because of the name that it bears. So let me further elaborate on. You've heard a little bit about Garrett Morgan, for whom the competition is named, and his role in transportation. He's genuinely an inspirational figure, and I'm not sure as well known as he perhaps deserves to be, because he was a great inventor. And I should mention he was born in Secretary Chow's home state of Kentucky. In our current department, the secretary likes us to mention people from Kentucky, so I just did that. But he was a great inventor from, as you heard, humble origins. And in addition to the transportation things, the traffic signals, like, one of his most popular inventions was a safety hood that helped protect workers from toxic smoke and fumes. And in 1916, so we're talking about a little ways back, he personally used his invention to save some workers who were trapped in a tunnel 50 feet beneath Lake Erie.
Wow.
And there are inspirational stories like this that are not always understood. So naming a competition like this after him is partly to pay tribute to him for a remarkable career. He was someone whose eyesight failed later in life, but he continued to work on inventions, sort of just perseverance. It's an important trait, and he's really a great example to all of us. I think the other part, in addition to our respect for his accomplishments, is he provides an example of things that might inspire us. I think that Sometimes it's important to have examples like this to think about. I will speak from my own experience. I was someone whose my parents were not college graduates. So learning the value of the education that you get and the efforts and perseverance it takes to be successful, like someone like Garrett Morgan proved to be, can be very motivational. And I hope that if even just the short descriptions you hear of him today contribute to that at all, it'll have been worth the time we're spending. Now, with regard to transportation, in the 18 years since this competition began, so much has changed. And I think about all of you young folks that are here. There are things you probably didn't even know about in transportation that many of us have lived through, and they've changed so rapidly. Cars today, just the cars you drive in with your families or others, they now have more lines of computer code than the Apollo spacecraft, which went to the moon in the 1960s. So we now have on simple things in a car, on our smartphones. Yeah, I actually have one. On our smartphones. There's more code. There's also faster processors than the supercomputers had in the 1980s, which isn't that long ago for some of us. And part of what this competition does is it highlights technology, and specifically innovative technology, that helps transform the way we travel and connect with one another. So one of the things that's very topical and you may hear about, or certainly will hear more about as time goes on, are what are called autonomous vehicles, or really self-driving cars. And these and other innovations, drones are another example, are transportation innovations that are fundamentally going to change the way we travel and the way we get goods delivered to us as well. And these new technologies, they have potential to improve the safety of our transportation, because they reduce some of the errors that we make as people, where we do things we shouldn't do, like text in a car, or something happens that causes us to make a mistake. It's not that computers will never make a mistake, but there's the potential to reduce the mistakes that we make. Human errors are estimated to be the main factor in about 94% of car crashes, for example, and the computer automation has the potential to reduce those mistakes and improve our safety. But there's another aspect that's important that technology involves, and that's increasing access to transportation, especially for underserved communities. Good examples are elderly people or people with disabilities. The fact that there's an automated vehicle that they don't have to drive themselves improves their mobility and creates more opportunity to get where they want to go and do things and live the kind of lives they would like to lead. You could say, in some sense, it restores their freedom of access to things that they value and care about. There's another technology I just want to briefly touch on, because it's something we're spending a lot of time on here at the department, and that's drone technology, or unmanned aerial vehicles, sometimes called UAVs, but more commonly called drones, revolutionizing aviation. So everybody, I think, is familiar with jet airplanes that fly around the sky and get people across the country. But in recent years, the number of drones that are registered has just taken off. And this year, we hit a major milestone of drones have to be registered with the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. This year, for the first time, we surpassed 1 million drones being registered. Wow. And there are now about 50,000 registered drone operators, people that control where the drone's going and where it's coming back to and the like. So drone operators, 50,000 of them, that's a job category that didn't even exist 10 years ago. New technology changing the way things are transported, whether it's people or goods or some of each. Transportation jobs changed because of technology. And all these technological advancements require, on the one hand, more computer programmers, computer engineers, computer technicians, but they also require a new generation of pilots, people that can control the automated planes and jets and rockets of tomorrow. And this becomes ripe ground for people of your generation to control these aircraft and fleets like it's never been done before. There will also be other types of new jobs once automation is involved that are variants of jobs that exist now: dispatchers, freight handlers, engineers, technology workers to oversee the fleets of vehicles. And, of course, let's not forget about drivers. The self-driving cars, at least for the foreseeable future, are still going to need humans. Most of the cars today that have self-driving still require, at least in some conditions, human operators some of the time. There may be a day when a truck can drive itself on a freeway, but at least for the near term, we're not going to have those devices wandering through cities without people involved. So these technologies create very exciting opportunities. They create things we have to study more closely and make sure that they're going to improve safety and not accidentally diminish it. The one other thing I was encouraged to mention, so I'm going to, which is non-motorized vehicles. Bicycling is something that's really increased in popularity as a mode of transportation and as recreational. And I say that as someone who likes to cycle myself on the weekends, so I commend it. But it's never been more important as another way to advance both safety and accessibility. It's increased 60% in the last decade. And if we can make it safer and more accessible in urban environments, that will benefit people who bike to school and work, as well as those of us who do it more recreationally. So I hope this competition will prove to be not only a learning experience for you as you observe it and participate in it, but I hope it will give you a glimpse into the really exciting world of transportation and the future of transportation that awaits us. And I just want to thank everybody involved for all of your hard work. I especially want to thank Secretary Mineta, who encourages young people to think about the future all the time and to dream big, and whose own life is another one of those inspirational stories, as I was saying about Garrett Morgan. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your comments today.
Karen, could I interrupt for just a minute?
Yes, sir.
As Deputy Secretary Rosen was speaking, it just came to my thought that to our young people here, there are two things you own that no one else does. First is your name, and the other is reputation or integrity. And so for the rest of your life, I want you to protect both your good name and your reputation and integrity. There'll be temptations along the line for you to do something. It may be a friend, and may be someone you don't even know. But please don't be tempted by what might be a short-term success or something that you get done, because in the long run, it may be harmful to you. So please protect your name and your reputation, and it'll carry you for the rest of your life. Because what do you look at when you look at a person? You say, do I trust him or her? And that's what you have to really think about as you go through life. Pursue your professional and career goals. Dream, as Secretary Rosen said, dream big, but always think about your reputation and integrity and protect that. And it will hold you in good stead as you continue through life. Thank you.
And thank you. Those sage words of wisdoms are words you should definitely pay attention to. And the opportunity to hear that advice from a true American hero, a legacy, is something I want to impress upon each of you as being so important. So thank you, Secretary Mineta, and thank you, Deputy Secretary Rosen, for your comments as well. We'll turn now, and you all will have an opportunity to ask a question of your choosing. I should say each team will have the opportunity to ask one question of your choosing to Deputy Secretary Rosen. Let's start here with Hart Christian School that's in the audience at USDOT. Who is our spokesperson?
Here's somebody.
Hello, my name is Tanaya Wright, and my question is the goal of having, you talked about self-driving trucks and things like that, is the goal having all of transportation electronic or anything like that?
I'm sorry, so the question was, is the goal to have them all be self-driving electronically?
Yes.
That's a really interesting question, because the goal really depends on what the public wants. That I think our job in the government is to try to enable what will work best for people, but there may not be a one-size-fits-all. It may be different people need different things. So I don't think we say, in the end, it should all be self-driving, but it may evolve that way in that over time, it may be that it's less expensive or it's easier. And so I don't know if that's how it comes out or not, because I think we're talking about something that's going to take some years, although it will be during your lifetime. We'll see if it's in mind. I hope so. So the answer is it depends. I think from the government standpoint, we try to enable choice for people. So if there are communities, this is what I was saying before, if there are communities that it's beneficial to, elderly people, disabled people, maybe that's where it starts, or maybe it's young people that prefer not to drive. Maybe they're more open to technology than some older people. It's hard to tell until we try it out, in a sense. So there are experiments going on. Some are in California and Arizona, some other places, where some of the companies are experimenting to see who would want to use it. And I think in the end, it will depend on two things. One is, what do people like the best? Because if they don't like it, they're just not going to use it. And the other is, can it be made safe? Are there requirements to make it safe that either call for uniformity or call for some places to have one system and another place to have a different system? And we're just starting to learn some of the information we'll need. And one of the virtues of some of the research centers, like the Mineta Institute, is they sometimes help us get information to start answering those questions. But we're at the earliest stage. We're just getting started, and I wish I had all the answers, but not yet. But it's a very good question, so thank you for that.
We have one question per team, so we need to turn now to our second school. Joining us from Caltrans District 1, we have Toddy Thomas Middle School. Your question for Deputy Secretary Rosen, please.
Good morning. Thank you for taking time to speak with us. I am Lily Sweeney, and our question is, what do you think about electric vehicles?
So let me just clarify. Do you mean electric vehicles as opposed to gasoline-powered vehicles, or do you mean self-driving vehicles, whether they're electric or not?
Opposed to gas.
As opposed to gas. So I guess I would say something similar to what I said on the other question, which is, to some extent, that's for the people who drive them to decide. I think there can be some advantages. Less pollution would be an obvious important one. They can, in some instances, if the technology is mass-produced, perhaps provide opportunities for cost savings. There are some currently disadvantages, which is the limit on how far they can go before they have to be recharged. But the companies that make cars are working on those issues. So I think they have tremendous potential, and this is another one of those things where the consumer gets to decide.
Excellent. Thank you. Turning now to our third and final question. Joining us from Caltrans District 4, we have Frick Impact Academy.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. My name is Lawrence Enriquez from Frick Impact Academy. My question is, currently we are seeing new transportation technologies such as car car and bike sharing, automated vehicles, and electric vehicles. How do you think transportation agencies should rethink policy and funding to help support these new technologies?
So that's a good question, and it presents some complicated issues because part of what we want to do is facilitate the opportunity to let the technology develop. And so as I was saying earlier, we're at an early stage, and I think part of what we have to do as policymakers is be somewhat humble in that we don't know how everything's going to evolve. But we want to be encouraging because the new technologies present opportunities that didn't exist before. So I think in thinking about policy towards transportation, we on the one hand want to enable the new technologies to develop and for people to have the opportunity to use them. But we say this all the time here, and we used to say it when Secretary Mineta was secretary. The number one priority of this department is always safety. Mm-hmm. It's the first and foremost consideration. So we have to balance that because we don't want to do things that reduce the safety of the American people. We don't want more people being killed, for sure. We don't want people being injured. But we also don't want to be so heavy-handed that new things can't be tried out and developed, and we want to enable that. So I think your question raises some complex issues of how do we strike the balance, and I think it can vary in different contexts depending on whether the technologies immediately involve people or whether they can be tried out in areas that present lower risk. And that's a little bit of what's going on now as drones and self-driving cars and some other new technologies are developed is the process of letting people develop them and then hoping that they will prove out in ways that make people's lives better, but in a safe way.
Terrific questions. Some very complicated and deep questions.
Yes.
So thank you.
Very, very knowledgeable and sophisticated questions. I commend you all.
Let's give a round of applause for our student questions. I think our students can see today what a critical role transportation plays in our lives. And you all have the opportunity to be on the verge of innovation, whether it's personal mobility devices such as hoverboards, shared scooters, shared bikes, car sharing, autonomous vehicles, or drones. Now is the time to enter the field of transportation and to start taking those classes necessary so that you're prepared to enter this workforce and become the mobility managers of the future. Now please join me in one more round of applause for Deputy Secretary Rosen, who's now off to the White House for his next set of meetings. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody. It was wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Now it's my privilege to welcome our next distinguished guest, Deputy Director of Administration for the California Department of Transportation, better known as Caltrans, Chris Rojas. Chris assumed her current position in 2010, and she has the enormous responsibility of being charged with all administrative functions at Caltrans. That includes everything from human resources to labor relations to procurement and contracts and statewide security operations, among other things, not only for the Caltrans headquarters, but for the 12 district offices. And by way of background, Caltrans maintains over 50,000 miles of state highways, has over an $8 billion budget, and thousands of permanent employees, to give you some concept of the job that Chris does. And of course, today's events would not be possible without the critical support of Caltrans, not only for connecting us through the video conference bridge in real time, but for their support of the Mineta Transportation Institute in being a partner in matching our federal UTC investment. So thank you, Chris, and please welcome our students.
Thank you so much, Karen. I hope everyone can hear me. Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be in front of you today. I was very happy to hear from such distinguished panelists, Secretary Mineta and Deputy Secretary Rosen. But what I'm most impressed about is the interest you as middle schoolers have shown in transportation and sustainable transportation. I don't remember what I was doing when I was in middle school, but you guys are way ahead of me, so I'm super proud of your interest. I have to tell you, when I started with Caltrans, I had just graduated from college, and I had studied economics, and I understood that the way to a successful economy was through a very dependable and strong infrastructure. And I ended up working at the Department of Transportation because I understood the connection with our roads, our highways, our transportation, and the success of the economy of California and the livability. I am very happy to be asked to speak today. I want to acknowledge my partners from our Division of Research, Innovation, and Systems Information. I've got Denise Delaney on my left and Elaine Chan on my right, and they helped make this possible today, and they've been working for many, many months to get this going, so I want to thank them. Mostly I want to talk about your role in the future of transportation. We all know kids are the key to our future. I have been so impressed with the kids of this generation coming up, showing an interest in their future and the kind of world they want to live in. So I'm super proud that you're here, and congratulations on taking this opportunity for yourselves to build your knowledge and to learn and gain more abilities. You're learning skills today that are going to continue to move us toward a sustainable future. I want you to keep in mind that to work in transportation doesn't only mean you have to be an engineer. It can mean a lot of different things. We employ chemists, we employ researchers, we employ all sorts of planners, people that study the environment, people that study law. I went to law school. I worked in our legal office, and I understand that a lot of what makes transportation successful in California and across the nation isn't just the engineering aspect, although that is an incredibly vital aspect. But there's a lot of ways people can get involved in supporting transportation. Right now, we talk a lot about sustainability, and that means a lot of different things. But one thing that it always means is, how are we going to continue our operations and be successful for the years to come? At Caltrans, we have a really long mission statement. It says, provide a safe, sustainable, integrated, and efficient transportation system to enhance California's economy and livability. And that sounds pretty important to me. And I think here at the department, we understand our role in making California successful. And I think any role you take in any state you're in, if you work in transportation, you are going to forward the economy and livability of that area you're in. So I always like to tell people we're really lucky when we work in transportation, because we really take advantage of the work we do ourselves. We all drive on the freeways. We all take the train or the bus. So we are all our own customers as well. So we're in a really interesting position of being able to see how we're doing and to come up with innovative fixes for problems we identify or challenges that we're having. So we really see a very strong connection to our own mission. And I hope that as youngsters participating today, you clearly already understand the importance of transportation. And for that, I'm really impressed by all of you and very proud. So what I'd like to do now is introduce the Caltrans-sponsored schools. They're coming from Northern California district offices. The first team we have is, we've heard from Toddy Thomas Middle School in Fortuna, California. Their teacher is Rachel Galliani-Fennell. And the Caltrans engineering mentor is Sherry Rodriguez. And they're sponsored by Gina Winston from our Caltrans District 1 office. So I'd like to welcome you again.
Thank you for sponsoring us.
Sure, absolutely. And we also have the Frick Impact Academy of Oakland, and that's Oakland, California. Their teacher is Charlotte Kishi, and their Caltrans team of mentors consists of Brian Rowley, Dina Al-Nakal, and Maïs Macaulay, sponsored by Alfonso Miles and Yolanda Larkins from Caltrans District 4. So welcome to you as well. And I know we have another formidable team in the Hart Christian School. So it's very nice to see all of you this morning. You've all done an outstanding job. I hope you do consider transportation as a profession, and it can take many forms. So keep that in mind. I really think the key to our own personal success is education and striving for innovations and endeavors that will make the future lives of people in this country better and safer and more sustainable. And again, I'm just so proud to be here with all of you. And thank you again for inviting me. And I want to also thank, obviously, Karen Philbrick for the invitation, and just really want to shout out the important work that they're doing at the Mineta Transportation Institute. Thank you all so much.
And thank you, Chris. Wonderful comments. Please join me. And I must follow up on a critical statement that you made, Chris, which is that there are multiple backgrounds in the current transportation workforce. Chris, as she indicated, went to law school. I stand here before you as a psychologist. One would think, how do you end up in transportation? But the answer is there is a position for all interests in transportation, and it's a critical field. In fact, in 2015, the Departments of Labor, Transportation, and Education issued a report jointly that quantified the workforce shortage in the area of transportation between the years of 2012 and 2022. Who wants to take a guess at what that number was? This is due to increased demand because of a growing population, retirements, voluntary separations, and anybody leaving the transportation workforce. How many jobs would you guess in a 10-year period of time? Go for it. 20,000. What else do we have? Anybody joining us remotely have a guess? All right, hold on to your seat. I'm saying the correct number, 4.6 million. So there will be a career waiting for you. We need you, we want you, and we encourage your excitement. So let's move next to our spokesperson, Joseph Nagurski from the American Public Transportation Association. He is Senior Director of Educational Services and Workforce Development. APTA has been a critical partner of the Mineta Transportation Institute since the inception of the Garrett Morgan Sustainable Transportation Competition in 2001. Through this partnership, over 1,200 students, such as yourself, have participated. Joe, please join me.
Thank you, Dr. Philbrick. Good morning to the folks in California. Good afternoon to the folks who are here in Washington. APTA is so grateful for the opportunity to be part of today's Garrett Morgan Symposium. We offer you our congratulations and to the Mineta Institute for sponsoring this very, very important event for students, for the youth, and for our industry. And also we bring special greetings to our dear friend, Secretary Mineta, and belated greetings to Deputy Secretary Rosen and also to our many friends here at the department. As you just heard, APTA has been with this program basically from day one. And it really is an exceptional program. And again, it's an honor to be here again today to welcome the folks who are here and our special students who are with us. As you know, APTA as an association and our industry, we are committed to public transportation and to building our nation's future. You just heard 4.6 million opportunities in this industry. Clearly, you will have many opportunities for really cool jobs and also for leading us into the future. As part of our own outreach and support for youth, we have welcomed over 250 students to Washington over the past 10 years to be part of our own Youth Summit. And again, that goal is to build awareness, to build skills, to provide you with opportunities to meet folks who are in leadership positions and folks who have those cool jobs that really move this country. In addition to our summit, through our committees and through our website, we have an abundance of resources for our members, for the general public, for the industry, and for teachers to provide you with insights and real tools and information about our industry to help you as you plan for what you want to do. Prior to today, I had a chance to talk with a few of the students who are here. You folks are very bright and you're committed to the future, you're committed to your education, and keep that going. At this time, it is our pleasure to introduce and welcome our students from the From the Heart Christian School in Stoughton, Maryland, and their teachers, Ms. Candace Long, Ms. Monica Miller, and Mr. Stephen Battle, who is the vice principal. And all these folks work under the leadership of their principal, Dr. Susie Long. From the Heart Christian School is a coeducational school for students in grades pre-K through 12. These folks are here today to observe, engage, and enjoy in this year's program with plans to be back here in the same space next year for next year's competition. May I also recognize my colleague, Jasmine Richmond, who reached out to this school to invite them today. Dr. Philbrick, thank you so much for welcoming us this afternoon. We wish everyone great success in today's competition. Thank you.
Wonderful. I now have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Mr. King Ji, Director of Engineering and Technical Services for the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, better known by the acronym of AASHTO. So you just heard from APTA for public transportation. Now you're hearing from AASHTO. Ken, please join me.
Good afternoon and good morning. You know, people say it's a privilege to be here in front of you, and you may be wondering why we say that. Because you guys, you students, are the ones that are going to be taking us into the next decades of transportation. And it's important because, as you've heard already during this part of the program, transportation is key. The clothing you wear, the food you eat, the things that you use in daily life is all moved by different modes of transportation. And you get a chance to decide what that's going to look like in the future. And we're in a lot of change. These didn't exist 10 years ago. Can you imagine that? How many of you know what a typewriter is? Those don't really exist anymore. And yet many of us in this room, Mr. Secretary, grew up with typewriters. Well, AASHTO represents the 50 state departments of transportation, of which Caltrans is one, and the D.C. and Puerto Rico. These are the guys who are going to be looking for you guys to come and work for us, because many of those jobs that Dr. referred to are in the state departments of transportation and the consultant firms and the contractors who build, operate, and maintain all those transportation infrastructure. Now, when I think about what you're faced with, most of the departments are, as the assistant director said, about moving people safely, moving people and goods efficiently, and about doing it in a sustainable way. And you guys are more in tune with sustainability than my generation was. But it's going to continue to be growing as a bigger and bigger part of what we're doing. You've heard already that without transportation, the quality of life that we have doesn't exist. And what does that mean to you? It means that you get to go to school safely. It means that you get to go to your games, baseball, basketball, whatever, efficiently, and don't have to worry about how you're going to get there. But as I pointed out to the cell phone, that didn't exist 10 years ago. A number of things that Deputy Secretary Rosen talked about also didn't exist 10 years ago. And I use 4 letters to illustrate the opportunities that you guys have as we go forward. CASE, C-A-S-E, connected. Cars are being connected in many ways today than they ever have been before. Cars that can talk to each other so they can travel down the road safely. A, autonomous, self-driving cars. You guys have seen the news probably about what's been happening over the last couple of months. There's still a lot of technological bugs that have to be worked out. S, shared economy. Whether it's scooters, bicycles, cars, the way we own and operate things in the past is changing rapidly. You know them by Uber, Lyft, and maybe other things like that. Then the last is electrification. Somebody asked a question, and I'm very impressed with the questions you guys asked. When I was in middle school, I don't know if I would have been able to ask those kinds of questions. But electric vehicles is huge. Not only is it cleaner for the economy, for the environment, it's also a different way of propulsion. When you look around your neighborhoods, gas stations, right? How are we going to recharge cars in the future? That's a huge issue that is going to be worked on in the next 10 years, and we're going to have to solve it. Because before, in the old days, when cars first started going and you got rid of the horse, people used to have big drums of gasoline in the back because they never knew when they would be able to stop and get gas again. So they brought gas with them. Well, with electric cars, it doesn't quite work that way. And so we're going to have to think through those solutions. When I was in middle school, and I grew up in New York City, the other end of the continent from San Jose, I knew in middle school I wanted to be an engineer. I didn't know what kind, but after college, I ended up in the transportation industry. 35 years with the Federal Highway Administration, now with AASHTO, 4.5 years. That's a long time. You can't imagine that long, but time goes quickly. So we just want to welcome you because there's so many things changing. How many have heard of Hyperloop? All right, you need to go back and research that. A totally new concept of moving people and goods in tubes, vacuum tubes. If you've never heard of it, you should look it up because there's all kinds of people that are going to be having to work on that technology that may very well replace the interstate highway system that we have today. Not in my lifetime, maybe, but maybe in your lifetime. So congratulations on being here and best wishes. And I think it's an exciting time to be in transportation today, and we welcome you into that profession. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, King. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate all of our sponsors so much. Now, it's my pleasure, before we start the competition, to introduce, so they can wave at you, 2 other key people in the audience. And that is our judges. Joining us, we have Susanna Kerr-Adler. She's the Vice President for Federal Operations at Jacobs Engineering. Thank you so much, Susanna. And true to form, she's an architect, but she's in transportation. So we have a psychologist, an attorney, an architect, and others. We also have Zach Smith, the Program Manager for Policy and Planning from the American Public Transportation Association. Thank you, Zach. It's now time to begin our competition. And as a reminder, each presentation should be limited to 10 minutes in length. Your presentations will be judged by the 2 individuals I just announced, and they'll assign points for teamwork, presentation quality, clarity, and for the concept itself, among other topics. After each presentation, the judges will ask the presenting team 1 question. That response will be taken into account when they do their final scores. So, who's ready to start the competition? Come on, come on. There we go. All right. First up, we will have Toddy Thomas Middle School from Caltrans District 1. Toddy Thomas, are you ready to take it away?
Yes, we are.
There you are. Excellent. Please do begin.
Where's the sign?
First green is
Oh. Okay. Small steps, big difference. I'm Mariela Oseguera.
I'm Elizabeth Van Blarkum. I'm Lily Sweeney.
and I'm Mason Melendi.
This is our background. Our class used an MTI Sustainable Transportation in the 21st Century lesson. Our class transportation carbon footprint worksheet to figure out each student's transportation carbon footprint to and from school. Then we collected each student's CO2 emissions data. The class summary table showed that most students ride to school in a car, driving alone, which generates a lot of CO2. We discussed different ways we could decrease our CO2 footprint. Some students are going to try to walk to school or ride the school bus more often. We also used MTI Lesson 3, learning about transportation fuels, and found out that electricity is the most accessible alternative fuel in our area. We talked about different ways to generate electricity to be used as a fuel and came up with the idea of harvesting human energy at school. Our idea. We will install piezo electric flooring in our school to capture kinetic energy produced by student footsteps. The energy will be pushed to the grid and used as an alternative energy source to fuel an electric school bus.
Piezo electricity is an electrical energy harvested from mechanical pressure such as a walking motion. When pressure is applied on an object, a negative charge is created and expanded on the expanded side and a positive charge is created on the compressed side. As pressure is reviewed, electric currents flow across the substance. The piezoelectric floors capture energy that is generated when a person is stepping on the floor. The amount of energy generated depends upon the weight of the person and type of movement. This kinetic energy is converted into electricity. We have 14 classrooms at our school. We plan to place piezoelectric flooring inside the entryways. Each classroom will have 18 square feet of area of floor. We plan to place flooring inside the office, in the foyer, and leading into the gym, covering 120 square feet. In total, 372 square feet of piezoelectric flooring will collect energy around our school, harvesting energy of daily footsteps. We worked with Sherry Rodriguez, a Caltrans District 1 civil engineer, to put together our energy calculations. Toddy Thomas is a 5th to 8th grade school with a total of 236 students.
In a week of school, students average walking in and out of classes 31.5 times. We counted the steps of district students and came up with an average of 7 steps per student walking in and out of a class. We multiplied the number of students by the number of times they walked in and out of classes in a week. We then multiplied that number by 7 steps per student and came up with a total of 52,038 steps per week. We also calculated how many steps per week students took walking into and out of the cafeteria for lunch. The cafeteria entrance in the foyer where we will have I can't read it. I can't see it. A large area of piezoelectric flooring. We multiplied 18 steps per student by 236 students by 5 trips per week for a total of 21,240 steps. Adding the total weekly classroom steps to the total weekly cafeteria steps, we ended with 73,278 school-wide steps per week. We then multiplied the total school-wide steps per week by 4 watts per step to find that students could produce 293,112 watts of electricity per week. Our steps help fuel an electric school bus. I interviewed my bus driver, Carol Stone. Her bus route is about 160 miles per week. The bus she drives uses 55 gallons of diesel per week. If my school bus was electric, it would need 150 kilowatts an hours to be fully charged to travel 100 miles. Our school-wide steps can push at least 293,112 watts per week to the power grid, helping to fuel an electric bus in our school district.
Piezo electric flooring advantages. Flooring can be used in high foot traffic places like city areas, schools, airports, railway stations, shopping malls, and office entrances to produce electricity. The energy created can go back to a building nearby, or in our case, to an energy grid to charge an electric bus. With kinetic flooring, our energy doesn't have a CO2 byproduct to create the energy, so it helps to reduce our CO2 footprint. Piezo electricity creates a clean, alternative energy to power an electric school bus by harvesting human footsteps, which reduces our transportation CO2 footprint. Since the students will help power the bus, we hope that they will ride the bus more often.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Let's give them a round of applause. Very innovative. Thank you. Let's turn now to our first judge, Susanna. Do you have a question for this team?
Thank you very much. Wonderful presentation. Before I get to my question, I do want to commend you guys on the depth of research and really looking at the full life cycle of not only the idea, but making it very personable and relatable to your life and what it means to you and your fellow students and your community. So I think that is a unique and a very strong aspect of your presentation. Also, from a technical presentation standpoint, you guys handled your transitions where all of you participated and handed off how you communicated very nicely. So wonderful job to all of you and the research you did. You talked about the benefits of this technology, and I have a two-part question. I know we're only technically allowed one question. The first part, can you talk about any of the negatives or the less positive aspects to the technology? And the second is, as a team or individually, was there anything that you learned that surprised you from this research topic?
Yes.
They're even collaborating on the response. It's wonderful.
Karen, I thought it was very interesting how they used their school as a lab, as a research center. I thought that was very creative.
And you are correct. A living laboratory was created during this year's competition. Wonderful. Students, let's hear your answer.
One of the disadvantages would probably be the wearability, how they would last, and the cost.
What surprised you?
What surprised us was how many steps we could get with such a small school that we have. And if we saw how big schools could, like if big schools did this, how many steps they would get too.
Okay, thank you. Let's turn now to Zach and see his question, or hear his question, rather.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Again, I just want to echo what Susanna said, that was a great presentation, very well thought out, and thank you for preparing for that. My question for the team is, have you seen examples of this type of technology used anywhere else or in real life?
We'll give you just a moment more to collect your thoughts.
No, we haven't, but we have seen them on the internet, and we have seen them in like tennis shoes that light up when you walk also. But other than that, no, we haven't.
So an innovative solution to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you for, and our carbon footprint, of course. Thank you for your presentation, students, and for your dedication and participation in this competition. Let's give them one last round of applause. Let's hear now from our second outstanding team, joining us from Caltrans District 4, Frick Impact Academy. Take it away.
Hello, my name is Socorro Lopez, and we'll be presenting our project Piezo Power for Frick Impact Academy. We are a group of 7th and 8th graders from Frick Impact Academy in Oakland, California, and we partner with Caltrans District 4. As stated, I am Socorro Lopez, and I am a part of the engineering team with so much more. Our urban planners are Alfonso Gonzalez, Jasmine Alvarez, and Paula Lujan. Our environment scientists are Miel Enriquez and Lawrence Enriquez. Our community outreach are Antonio Galan and Miles Goodwood. Why is this important? Well, this is important because of the impact of climate change effects on our community. Another reason why this is important because is the need for safe and environmentally friendly transport. A third reason why this is important because we want to make urbanization sustainable for our community. What is climate change? Climate change is a result of rising human activities that produce greenhouse gases, which make the earth warmer. The rising average of global temperatures are having many effects on climate patterns around the world. As you can see, the graph shows the increasing levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide over the past 650,000 years. Only recently did they increase by this much. Sources of climate change, greenhouse gases, and pollutants. Human activities are the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. They are causing global warming and therefore climate change. In the United States, these sources include burning fossil fuels to get electricity, heat, and to provide transportation. The greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation are due to such models as cars, trucks, trains, ships, and planes. If you look at the chart on the slide, you can see that 27% of greenhouse gas emissions are from transportation. These emissions include burning fossil fuels for our vehicles. And now I'm going to pass it on to Alfonso from our urban planner team to introduce our plan.
Hello, my name is Alfonso Gonzalez. I'm part of the urban planning team, and I'll be talking about how we plan to develop Oakland's complete streets and green spaces. First, I'll talk about what sustainable transportation looks like in Oakland, specifically our community. We looked at major roads near our schools, and we noticed safety concerns in the crosswalk and pavements. It's an overall unpleasant aesthetic when walking around with litter and cracked pavements. There's also the lack of green spaces near the roadways. These roads can cause pedestrian concerns with the proximity of the pedestrians to the roadways, creating an unsafe environment. There's also few multimodal transit options other than cars and buses. We want more of these options, such as biking and walking. Our plan and objective for this project is to create a safe and sustainable multimodal transit option for getting around work and school. We can recycle energy spent from human activities, for example. We will also reduce the negative effects of urbanization by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and air and other pollutants. We will also encourage the community to use these safe and green spaces. What are complete streets? Complete streets are also known as multimodal streets. What we hope to accomplish is to create an environmentally friendly transit option and to reduce our carbon outputs. This can help by having a safer and more attractive option for the transit for the community. Now I'll pass it on to Paula, another member of the urban planning team, who will explain in more detail about our complete streets plan.
Hi, my name is Paula Rosen, and I'm going to talk about what the Complete Streets project will look like. For Complete Streets project, we chose to develop transit on Foothill Boulevard because it is a major route that connects our school and our community to other parts of Oakland. Foothill Boulevard also receives a lot of car and pedestrian traffic, so people will utilize it. On the slide, it shows the map of the proposed section of Foothill that we will be focusing on. It will stretch from our school to Fruitvale Avenue. Along Foothill Boulevard, we will focus on making bike lanes and car lanes on Foothill safer by adding space dividers and car lanes to separate cars from bikes and pedestrians. As you can see, we have two images of possible multimodal designs we have considered for the makeup of Foothill. Each focuses on adding space between traffic lanes and bike and pedestrian lanes so that it is safer and nicer to walk in. While planning this, we have to think about constraints. Some considerations are measurement projections of the proposed transit routes, such as the width of the car, bike lanes, and parked car lanes. Now Samaj from the engineering team will talk about the engineering design behind this project.
Hello, my name is Samaj Moore and I'm a part of the engineering team. I'm here to talk about how we will incorporate sustainable technology in our Complete Streets plan. Specifically, we will be using the emerging technology of Piezo Electricity, or what we call Piezo Power. Piezo electricity is a phenomenon that happens when mechanical force is applied to two metal plates, which will then squish a piezoelectric material such as quartz or amber. When the two metal plates push the piezoelectric material, this generates electricity. Piezoelectric walkways will work in exactly the same way, except we will replace the metal plates by using concrete walkways. We are planning to use our walkways along Foothill Boulevard, which is a part of our Complete Streets plan. We want to recycle energy that people spend, specifically in areas that contain high concentration of transit and pedestrians. We are also planning to use the reverse piezoelectric effect. This happens when electricity is applied to the quartz, which causes it, instead of shrinking, it causes it to expand. This also generates electricity. Now I'll be talking about the considerations and impacts of our project. Some of the pros are that it recycles human activity and generates electricity to harvest energy to power streetlights. It also reduces pollution. This will not only create green spaces, but it will also encourage safe transit routes. And lastly, it provides environmentally friendly mobility options for our urban community. Some of the cons are the cost of developing this new urban transit route. The materials needed for piezo cells can be very expensive. Also, the capacity for energy produced by piezo cells is limited. However, as we scale up infrastructure and piezo technology, we hope more energy can be harvested and used to generate electricity. The last part of our plan focuses on community outreach. Here are some ways that we can reach out to the community. We will try to partner with community organizations to encourage use of foothill green spaces and complete street development. We will also partner with existing transit routes such as AC Transit to improve bus lanes and signage that encourage people to take the Foothill Boulevard. We will be able to communicate to the community the ways that they will be helping by getting this energy, and the energy will also have good effects on not only others in the community, but also themselves. In conclusion, Piezo Power hopes to create complete streets by developing sustainable roads, bike lanes, and walkways in urban areas because people wish to have safe and sustainable options for transit. At the same time, we want to harvest energy from daily activities to help power the community we're a part of. Lastly, we want to give a special thanks to Ms. Kishi, to Mr. Brian Rowley, who was a major supporter of our project, and Mr. Alfonso Miles, and others at Caltrans District 4 who helped with the logistics. Thank you.
And thank you. Terrific presentation. Let's see what questions our judges have for you today. Susanna, let's turn to you first.
Thank you very much. A wonderful presentation. I think what you guys showed is what teamwork is like when you have all different disciplines, different ways of looking at things, and how you can build a project out of that. You had so much richness and depth to what you presented. There were actually probably 2 or 3 projects that you snuck in there as opposed to just one around sustainable transportation. So whether you did that on purpose or not, I applaud you. 2 things. One is on the community piece. I think it's great. While our first presentation was really focused on kind of a living lab, you took it out and looked at a broader community impact of what you were doing. So very different presentations, but both using the same technology. It was also very well grounded in kind of science and research, and you definitely looked at kind of what's happening and took from what's occurring in the environment around you to come up with recommendations. I guess I want to ask you if you could take this a step further and move beyond the actual cell of piezo technology, but look at kinetic energy. You talked about bringing in more bikes, more pedestrian activities. What are some of the other ways you might generate activity from, bicycles or people or other movements within this multimodal transportation corridor?
That's a great question. Let's give them a minute to collect their responses. And by the way, if any of you in the audience have a question of our teams, I will turn to you next, and you'll have the opportunity to pose that question. And same with our students. Are you getting a feel for what it will be like next year? Excellent.
Well, as of now, me and my team, we're not really sure about how we can use other forms of energy to help power not only streetlights but also houses. But hopefully in the future, when we research more about this, we'll be able to figure out a new project that will be more, sustainable. That'll also generate more electricity along with the piezo electric technology.
Thank you. Zach, your question, please.
Thank you. Again, I just want to say that was a really great presentation. It was excellent hearing from you guys. I actually am giving a presentation on complete streets within a couple weeks, so I'll probably include some of these materials. But my question is, you mentioned community outreach and educating others about this technology. Partnerships are very important within the transit industry. So I just wanted to ask you, have you thought of other agencies, other organizations that would need to be included in order to make this possible?
Other organizations that we've thought of to, help with the piezo technology and outreach to the community are BART, Uber, and Lyft, mostly because they, they're very big companies in transportation. So we're hoping maybe we can discuss with them to further, improve this technology to see if it will be any other way to get more energy from this, or also use it on trains that BART uses.
Very good response. Thank you. Let's turn now to our guests at the US DOT Media Center. Does anybody have a question for our two outstanding teams? Yes, up in front, and there's a microphone being brought to you.
Do you yourselves believe that making complete streets on already made streets is really plausible?
And was that for Team 1 or Team 2?
Team 2.
Team 2. Team 2, Caltrans District 4. We'll give him a minute.
So, other ways that we can use these complete streets, and I do think it's possible because if we already have the plan planned out, we can have more ways and more ideas of making it realistic and making it useful and making it for other people to see as a way that they can use it and they can benefit from it. So in that idea, I think it is possible to make these complete streets.
We have one last question from our audience with me here today. Okay, seeing none. If Caltrans headquarters, District 1 or District 4 has any last questions, just verbalize them into the microphone and it will alert the cameras here. Okay. Hearing none, I would like to thank each of you for participating in today's competition. This concludes our 18th annual Garrett Morgan Sustainable Competition for Middle School Students. We look forward to reconvening again next year to hear the new innovative ideas that each of you have. And before we say goodbye, I'd like to once again thank our judges, Zach and Susanna. We appreciate your assistance. We have two special people in the audience that I'd also like to call out, Mr. Cesar Singh, Director of University Grant Programs for OSTR and a supporter of the Mineta Transportation Institute and all of the fun UTCs across the nation. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. And this would not be possible if it weren't for the assistance of Santiago Navarro. He's Acting Senior Advisor of the Technology Transfer Program Manager for OSTR, and he's the person who helped us arrange all of the logistics for today. Thank you so much, Santiago. We're grateful for your help. And finally, Secretary Mineta, you honor us with your presence. Thank you for joining us today. I know the kids get a big sense of motivation from hearing you speak, and we are privileged to have you. Thank you. Bidding you farewell from Washington, D.C., thank you for your participation. That concludes today's event.